I turned around and I thought it's Christmas time, so I went, oh, did I have a nice Christmas? I thought that's what she said, and she went, no, I said, are you looking for business? And I went, oh, right. I went, oh, I'm all right, thanks. She went, oh, right. She went, did you have a nice Christmas? So I went, yeah, I was all right. I was yours, bring it up, fine. Yeah, that sums up Preston quite well.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah, you've got to have clear diction when you're on the streets.
Yeah.
People going, man, what?
Yeah, sales pitch is bad.
Did you go to hit your quota?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you give her that advice? If you're gonna hit your quota, you really need to enunciate business.
I haven't got time now. I've got to be at 10:36, but same time next week.
Book it for one.
Oh,
Sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, everybody.
you can't use the same language as KFC.
Finger licking left ring.
I'm sorry about that, everybody. So, I hear you've been leafing through the Lancashire Post.
Yeah, been clicking. Opening tab, left, right, bloody centre. There is some great stories in Preston, even just today. But my favourite is a couple of big stories. Ross Kemp was seen me in Preston filming. Not even in it. In the woods outside.
Do we even know if he was filming?
I think so.
Was he just in the woods?
Yeah, just filming Ross Kemp.
Ross Kemp's just in the woods near Preston. There's no camera crew.
I can imagine him doing that where he's saying he's onto a survival thing. And really, like, they can see you from Preston. Woods.
You always in the woods. You kicked me out again. By the time you kicked me out, I just hire a crew. There's no real story there. You just got a caravan park, but I don't think it's, well, caravan site, and I don't think it's a positive.
Oh, I managed to get to Mountain. So
Yeah.
That's already a good start.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
Phil, here's a question for you. Outside of comedic achievements, have you ever appeared in the Northern Pen?
Oh, yeah, I have actually. We went to Butlins as kids, not as adults, just as kids. We were walking out to leave. Just went to papers there.
That costume ain't fooling anybody, Mr. Alice.
I just want to join Kids Club.
When you dress as a 1950s schoolboy. We entered the fancy dress and posted for the first day chapter.
Dressed as?
My mum dressed me as a fancy dress and they put ahead of it starting off the barrel of land.
Oh!
She made a barrel there on the joke on it. She made me hold it with a duster and I'm very quite shy and I'm supposed to stop happening to that. I stopped that one along, but I made the paper.
That's brilliant. I'm totally
Clearer and more, like, completely understandable comedian origin story. Your mum dressing you in a barrel with jokes slapped to it and you're in your pants.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I like this, but I've made the paper.
Yeah. I went backstage and fell into some toxic waste. That was it. That became a good middle spot. Became a strong 15.
Your first fancy dress costume, what shape was it?
Yeah, you don't realise it.
I think my first fancy dress was when it's on the spin bag around it, it's like a little bin bag bit.
Yeah.
No, I think I did a bit back one year, yeah.
Yeah, you put it as a bin bag, so I was a little bin bag witch. And then when I worked at that was my nickname, and it's stuck, believe me. It's bloody stuck.
It's June!
That's going to be my Twitter handle. Then when I worked at the Crystal Days in Manchester, this is only 4 years ago, I worked at Carpenter, and they asked me, so I just put my go to small bin bags, and I just wear a bin bag. So it has, isn't it weird? It's affected all our lives.
If I have a kid, I'm going to dress as a successful businessman. What do you think you'd do, Phil? You had a kid that was bought with a t-shirt.
funny if it was a t-shirt with like a picture of just a random couple enjoying a weekend in Blackpool. Holding one of those cushions. Supposed to be what's on the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a plain t-shirt?
I mean, yeah, I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, it'll be as broken a loop. Almost certainly. I'm just trying to put it back. Just till it comes out with the suit on. Come back when you start.
We get encouraged to try and ask new questions on this podcast, and I don't know if that was
I love that if that was one of the staple ones in job interview. What you read this is, what would you do? I think so it works well as an individual and also as part of the team.
It'd be funny if the interviewer was asking every candidate because their kid had come out with a t-shirt on and they're just trying to find out what would you do?
It's Umbro, it's not even a good make.
Gonna get bullied.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Wow.
that's the end of our time with you. Where can people hear stories like this live from you?
Oh, I'm doing the Soho Theatre in London from the 7th to the 11th of November.
Woo-woo. It's so nice to talk to you. I've laughed a lot.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on. Always a
Lovely
pleasure.
to see. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to time on. I mean, to speak to you though. Always a pleasure. First time calling along.
Oh, well, thanks, Phil.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you at the Soho.
Alright, bye.
Bye, Phil. Bye.
Don't let that go. Watch me in shower.
So, I found a story that is not technically Gould, but it could be Gould residents suffering this fate. So this is about John Leggett College in Scunthorpe. And that's the college I went to. So it takes a big bus full of ghoulies. So this is an incident that has traumatised students. Trauma is horror, is Halloween. So it is a legitimate story if you're listening. A group of students has been left traumatised after a car pulled up alongside them before the occupants set off fireworks in their direction. They've been fireworksed.
Not
I'm
fireworks.
afraid so.
That's awful, that.
Yeah. Just walking down the street, someone's opening a car door, and then...
Oh.
It's hard to do with firework impression.
I think you just need to add that. Onto the beginning.
That's really good.
That's fireworks sting.
Do you reckon they still got, like, when the fireworks go off, do you think they still go, ah! Oh! Ah! I'm burning! Oh! That's something good.
So when I was in college, I was dating a guy who invited me out one night, and I went to meet him, and he was with all his mates, and I thought it was like a real romantic thing. And what he was doing was saying fireworks off of his bum.
Oh! But there's a skill to that.
It was terrifying. It was, I hated it. I am very health and safety conscious. I love my health and safety. I still turn up off at the wall out.
Oh, really?
Every time, Ian. Every single goddamn time. I'm not the sort of girl you impress. Like, set fire. If anyone was thinking, I want to impress Glenn, you can't impress me by setting fireworks off out of your rectums, if I'm honest.
Oh, okay. I wonder if there'll be
appreciate the
people
effort.
listening to this box full of fireworks. Just going, right.
Box full of fireworks, assless chaps. But no, I didn't like it, Ian. They're also putting fireworks in dog poo bins.
Yeah, I think that's funny.
Stayed with him for 6 months.
Well, but did you like going on a walk around the park together? He's like, oh, wait on a second, just let me put that in the dog poo bin. Just like,
Bang! Firework in the dog poo bin. You like this? You like me now?
I think that'd be the weirdest bit. Not him putting it in the bin, but him stood next to it screaming, do you like me now?
I liked you before, I'm not sure.
Imagine saying that at any point during the day. Do you like me yet? No, keep going. Oh.
What's the point?
Fireworks.
Fireworks. Oh God, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah, the girl who wished to remain anonymous said we were sat in a group at dinner and the car came by and discharged 2 fireworks in our direction. I think this girl sounds like a bit of a square. Her statement to the paper is, a car came by and discharged 2 fireworks in our direction, landing 6 feet away before exploding.
Do you know what? That is my kind of girl. That's what I would have said.
This girl said I was traumatised by it all, and I'm scared of fireworks as it is. So imagine being scared of fireworks and the one gets launched at your face.
And purposefully as well.
Yeah. Thankfully no one was injured, and officers are currently exploring lines of inquiry to identify any of those involved. So they're not just exploring the lines of inquiry.
I could send my friends.
If you're listening, you're like, I did that. Hand
yourselves in.
You'll see this inside of a prison cell. Your soul will be clear.
Have you heard who's died? He's back.
What story have you got, Amy?
Not so much a story, Ian. A list.
Oh, cool. This is about playing the phone.
It's a spooky list. It's the 5 most haunted places in Yorkshire. And let me tell you, number 1 is a place in Liverpool. Of course it is. Spooky dooky. So number 1 is the Anderson Funeral Parlour in Hull. I'll be honest, I've passed this building 500 times. I didn't know it was a funeral parlour because it's always been like shut down, boarded up, you know. But people have been, going ghost watch. They get filmed in. They've been. Do you know what I mean? Big deal.
Yeah.
They've been there. Big deal. I didn't realise that it is still, it's part of it that's still happening. And it's a late night pharmacy.
Oh, what?
That sounds late night.
Why you got a late night pharmacy? That sounds just like short deals.
It does, doesn't it? So, the staff who work there to this day refuse to go up. So it's got like 3 stories and they refuse to go up because so much stuff has happened and they won't go in certain bits. They literally just work in their little pharmacy bit and they won't go anywhere else because it's all abandoned.
I don't think I could work at a funeral parlour without being paranoid.
No.
It's haunted.
Especially not one that's, let me say, from Victorian to be honest. If I can be so specific in my date.
Yeah, Victorian time. Mad.
They were mad and creepy. It was so creepy. It'd be so weird in the future when people look back at like the 1970s as like the creepy time. Do you know what I mean?
Getting haunted by someone from the 70s.
Yeah. People be walking around like haunted places and they'd be, do you remember them all the rage? Those chairs that sit in there, like, bright orange, like bubble chairs, like, the plastic bubble chairs everywhere, of course.
Well, you think they're filled up with ghosts?
Yeah, I think so now. Now I'm back, it all makes sense.
You just sat on ghosts.
Sat on a scrub of ghosts. Playing Mega Drive. Not a care in the world. They say the Anderson Funeral Parlour is the last location visited by Mary Jane Langley, 18 girl, murdered in 1890. If I'm honest, I don't want to say I'm a detective. I don't want to say it.
Okay.
Do you know what, Ian? I think you need from the stage. See if you've got a theory of what's happened here.
Okay.
Before her disappearance, Langley visited the building to meet with a photographer who operated his business there. Not long after, their lifeless body was discovered in a ditch with their throat slit. Police listed several people of interest, including Jack Rick suspect and Bailey Dean. No, we don't get to Okay, riddle minutes. You've got to a creepy building to see a photographer and you're an 18-year-old girl in the England. Who do you think's done it?
I should have looked at herself.
I think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone spoke to the creepy photographer. If there's one, like, lovely police officer going, do you want to speak to the photographer? And they're like, don't be daft, lad. You can't kill someone with a camera. No, I'm saying he might have like got a knife or something. How's he taking photos with like?
You need two hands to take pictures. You can't have two hands on camera and one hand on knife. No chance. Also, it's not clear, but maybe it was already a funeral parlour.
Yeah, but couldn't get photos done.
Get photos out of the funeral parlour. It's fine. Make teams out there. On your own, please. To the funeral parlour.
Just checking, have you got a neck? Why are you asking me that? No reason.
If you weren't wearing any sort of like orthopedic neck collars or any sort of metal around your neck that might, I don't know, sort of blade engine or anything like it's just like a thing that I just ask every client.
It's a fun question, it's a liar.
The camera, actually, if you take a picture of someone and they've got a big metal collar on them, it distorts the image. Basically, I can show a bare neck.
Imagine people in Victorian times was easy, wasn't it? It's because I was stupid back then.
Stupid?
Thick as shit back then. Did they have TVs back then?
In Victorian times?
Yeah.
No.
It is. Can't make a TV. I could make a TV now.
No, you could not. What then?
Screen,
Yeah.
box big, plug.
What's going on inside?
I think I can make it look like a TV.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. No, it is hard, isn't it?
No, it's hard. No, it's hard. So that's number one of the five. Other contenders on the list are the Ripon Workhouse Museum. It's a workhouse, of course that's haunted. There's going to be bad vibes there. Number three, the East Wriggleston Hall, Wriggleston. Temple Newsome is number four in Leeds. Temple Newsome, distinctly remember telling you a time when I did a wonderful wee, like a crab, outdoors, in the evening, in the dark, and I ran like a crab whilst doing it. And there was a few of us doing it, and it was a very exciting moment. This was in Temple Newsome, which is the fourth most haunted place in Yorkshire.
Yeah, but I imagine that scared the ghost off like 4 girls pretending to be crabs and pissing at the same time. If you were like a murderer haunting people, you'd be like, right, here we go. What are they doing? No, leave it.
Leave them.
Leave
They're not
it.
worth it. They are freaking me out. So there you go. Now number five, the fifth on the list, I think is fascinating. It's 30 East Drive, Pontefract, and look, it's just this house.
Oh,
So
yeah.
all the others have been like big stately buildings, the old
That's
funeral parlour.
scary.
This
Just
is
a normal terraced house.
Yeah, and like Yvette Fielding's been, loads and loads of programmes have gone there because apparently it is just, for whatever reason, like genuinely terrifying. Yvette Fielding, who's obviously been nearly everywhere that's haunted, said it's the most terrifying location she's ever visited, citing the never-ending paranormal activity and the violence of the spirit who dwells there is excessive even for a poltergeist. What's happening here? Number 30 East Drive.
Excessive even for a poltergeist, mate.
But it's genuinely really scary. So one of the families that lived there was like, what's going on here? Then the evil spirit started targeting their young daughter. And it says, one of the most disturbing poltergeist attacks saw the spirit drag the 12-year-old girl up the stairs by the throat before attempting to strangle her with an electrical cord.
This can't be true. Because surely if that happened, it would be the biggest news story ever. Oh, I mean, if there was CCTV footage of it or something, I don't know.
I just don't know, but it just seems like so many people have visited it. The neighbours have reported screams and demonic voices even during periods of the home being
Yeah, I
uninhabited.
wouldn't even want to be next door to that. She'd be like, oh, our house isn't haunted, but yeah, every now and then we just hear muffled from next door.
Turn it, it's 10 p.m. I'm sick of this.
This is excessive even for a poltergeist. I accept there's going to be some screaming and murder for a poltergeist. It is excessive. For God's sake.
Yeah, wild, right?
Yeah.
Spooky.
It's been a spooky episode.
It's been a spooky episode.
And this is the point of the episode where we're allowed to say, just so no one is feeling very scared, we whispered fuck off, I'm tired during those stories.
Fuck off, I'm trapped.
Joel
Did it
keeps
again.
saying tired. I said fuck off, I'm tired, and then we had to restart a story so I could say trapped, because I think I'm so tired, all I can think of is being tired. But
What's the point?
just to clarify, if you were listening and you heard someone whisper fuck off, I'm trapped, that was a little fun Halloween episode joke.
And if you heard someone say fuck off, I'm tired, that's just us saying that we're tired.
Yeah.
We can't be arsed.
And if you heard fuck off followed by anything else, then you are being haunted.
Yeah, you are being haunted, yeah. Do you know what? On that note,
Yep.
I just want to say thank you for listening to this spooky Halloween episode. And we'll be carrying on the spooky stories over on our Patreon.
Check your cupboards. There might be a spooky story in there.
Or it might be on our Patreon.
Yeah, it's on
So
our Patreon.
Do sign up and then check your cupboards.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Always check your cupboards.
And sign up to Patreon. Oracle subs. And thank you, of course, to our special guest, Phil Ellis.
Yeah.
Oh,
Check him out.
Funny.
At Soho Theatre.
so hot theatre. I've done good. What a funny guy.
He's a fun man.
I think you should sing
Sorry.
with a little sleepy, scary lullaby.
Okay. You can have this. Pop it on. It's time for sleep. You're gonna get haunted by a little ghost. It's under your bed right now. Go and have a look. 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 Is that a lullaby?
Oh, and she's gone to sleep. She's drifted off. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and see you again next week. Happy Halloween!
Goodbye.
Woo! Acast recommends.
My name is Amat Levine, and I'm here to tell you about Black History Unveiled, where we spotlight pivotal moments, influential figures, and groundbreaking movements from Black history across the globe. For example, Millie, and you can
within my own budget, it's good to know that that's there.
The app and the site just
15. Coming up on this show, we've got India's metallic man monkey visiting the park in Focus 27 and meeting at the Interdimensional Cafe. I'm your host, Benjamin Grundy. Joining me is Aaron Wright.
What, people leave their bodies and have some, tea and cake at an interdimensional cafe somewhere?
You know Robert Monroe, obviously.
Of course, yeah, I love
We
his
do
work.
on this show the trailblazer into the research of out-of-body experiences. He wrote a bunch of books in the 1970s, 1980s. I think his last one was in 92, about his out-of-body experiences. And of course, he established the Monroe Institute with a research altered states of consciousness. Well, over time, the people that did this program he designed at the Monroe Institute, they started to notice that there was this meeting spot in another dimension. And
That they had created?
yeah, it was like this Tulpik cafe. It's kind of like the base camp for Mount Everest, but instead of Mount Everest, you're exploring other dimensions.
Yeah, before you go through each of those layers, right?
Yeah, well, I'll be talking about an author today, a German guy who went to the Monroe Institute multiple times. And on I think it was the second visit where he learned about this location. And it's essentially where you go into this altered state of consciousness. And remember, Monroe divided up these different dimensions of existence into focus levels.
That's right, yes.
Which
different layers.
indicated, layers of consciousness, layers of existence. And I can't remember what focus level it was, but yeah, apparently there is this place where you all meet up. It's like everyone meet up at the cafe, you all go into this altered state of consciousness, and it's like, okay, we're all here.
Want to rejuvenate before you go on some excursion?
Yeah, let's go into some wild dimension together. You got to meet up at the cafe.
Okay, cool.
But for the author I'm going to be covering today, his name's Oliver Tapp. He's got this new book called Invisible, Out-of-Body Experiences and Explorations into the Afterlife. There's the cover there. He goes along to this 1-week course at the Monroe Institute, and it costs a couple of grand. Like, you can still do it today. It's $2 or $3 grand to do the whole course. And he noticed that he was always lagging behind everyone. Like on the second day, one of his, because you get paired up with people, and his roommate, and I'll explain how it all works later on in the show, but his roommate basically is like, I went to another dimension, I saw dead loved ones, I saw this, I saw that. And all Oliver experiences is someone snoring.
That would be you. That would be you if you underwent that.
He's about to go into like a slightly altered state of consciousness, and he just hears this.
It's hard. Like, no wonder Monroe has got this entire program set up, because it's a really hard thing to train yourself to do. And, you know, normally for a lot of people, having out-of-body experiences like this, they're completely spontaneous, which is why it's so terrifying for a lot of people that undergo those experiences. And I guess anything that's worth it, though, requires that effort to learn and train and understand how to actually use it.
Well, it's a real discipline.
Absolutely it is, yeah. And it fits in with meditation and those sorts of practices as well. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into that in a moment. In our Plus extension, actually, towards the end of the show, I've been trawling through these really old archives of a website known as the Groom Lake Desert Rat, right? And it happened to coincide with this new video that's come out from News Nation. News Nation, it's a YouTube channel, link to it in the show notes. It's quite large, it's got like over 1 million followers. But they've published a collection of files from George Knapp, like the great journalist and researcher George Knapp. And
he's got his podcast with Jeremy Corbell.
That's right,
going
yeah.
quite well.
Yeah, really nice guy. And I was going through some of his files because, of course, George Knapp was one of the first people to publish any details about the Area 51 or the facility that was there. It wasn't known as Area 51 at that point.
What's the Desert Rat publication?
So the Desert Rat is actually being published by Glenn Campbell, right? And this was shot
Is he the rat? Is he the Desert Rat?
He's the Desert
just
Rat.
digging up all the stories?
And that's what he does. So he hangs around Rachel in Nevada. And of course, you know, he found out, or he noticed that there was something unusual going on around this area. And most of the time, though, he said, look, people see lights in the sky around that area all the time, you know, strange balls of light and strange activity going on. And he's actually very, paranormally conservative, because he's like, it's just flares, it's just, you know, typical standard military things that are going on. And
it's
yes,
all the Pleiadian light shit.
Yeah, all that crap, right? He just shoots all that down. But this is why I actually like his research, because you can go, well, yeah, that stuff's all actually normal. But the other stuff that's going on, if you dig a little bit deeper, you find that there's something very strange occurring here. And in fact, he pulls up the story of Alfred. And Alfred is allegedly a guy who worked at Area 51 and provided great insight into the technology that was being tested there, including they're not off-world craft, but they're also they're highly advanced aircraft that were derived allegedly from extraterrestrial technology.
Who's this Alfred guy? Is it someone we know?
No, it's not someone we know. No.
Alfred Bielek?
No. This is a pseudonym that was used, and he essentially worked with a leading German scientist who came over from the Second World War with Project Paperclip, and he was given great details about what this program is. And it will actually give us some greater insight as to why these things crash, why people's cars break down, why all the electrical components go. And then I dug even deeper, and it led me down this path of how once everything heated up, and I'm not saying it's George's fault by any means, but once the attention came about that, yeah, there's a facility here and there's advanced technology that's being tested, they had to move it. They had to move it to other locations.
Area 51.
Well, they didn't move Area 51, but they moved some of the programs, like some of the UFO technology, the unidentified flying objects that they're experimenting with. And of course, they moved
Pine Gap.
Well, maybe Pine Gap, but that doesn't come up in this story. But they moved it to places in Texas, so I'm going to describe some of those stories. But they also moved it to Spain and Puerto Rico, potentially. And then it starts tying in with strange portals opening up, and strange chupacabra-like entities. All of that is coming up in our Plus extension towards the end of the show.
We've got a bunch of portals.
Oh, that works. That's good. Well, I guess, it goes without saying, with out-of-body experiences.
Well, it's not an MU show with at least one portal.
It's true.
That's where all the stories come from. Story portal opens up in the afternoon. We're about to give up.
Normally at like about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to record at 6, and it's like
we're about to check out.
Yeah,
just end everything.
The portal only opens up, in relation to how much stress we're under. So it's going to the closer it gets to 6 o'clock, and the more likelihood that we're not going to get a show out, the more likely it is it will open for us.
So, like I said, this is Oliver Tapp, invisible out-of-body experiences and explorations into the afterlife, focusing on the Monroe method. He's a former TV journalist from Germany, and today he's a certified trainer for the Monroe Institute. And I'm not sure how the whole system works, but you have to obviously go there and pass some kind of tests and get certified. But he moved to LA in 1992, and the book's extremely well written. I didn't realize it was translated.
Oh, right.
Because I went to look the guy up and find out more about what he does and what he's selling, really.
It's all in German.
It's all in German. Like, everything's in German. His website's in German, his Facebook page is in German, everything's in German. And when I finally looked into it, I realized the book is a translation, but you wouldn't be able to tell. So, the usual story with this kind of stuff, like, this guy was fascinated with death from a young age. Like, he's one of these kids who had these big questions very early on. He remembers going to the graveyard and somewhere in Germany with his family, but just wondering, where are all these people now? Like, surely that's not it. They're just not in the ground. And as he got into his teens, he started to experiment. And he thought, what? Well, he thought the best way to figure out the answer to that question is necromancy. So he got a Ouija board, he tried to get in touch with the dead, got all these books from the German library and on the occult stuff. But thankfully it didn't work. None of that stuff worked. And
you got a spirit attached to it?
Well, no, because years later, he stumbled across one of Robert Monroe's books. This is how this started. He came across Journeys Out of the Body by Monroe. I'm not sure if that was one of his first ones, but
It's definitely one of his earliest.
yeah, 1971, Journeys Out of the Body is the first book. And in November of the year 2000, inspired by the books, he set off on this 6-day workshop at the Monroe Institute, which is in Virginia. And the foundation of the Gateway Voyage program lies in the HemiSync audio technology, which of course is the core of the whole Monroe system. And if you're not familiar with it, it's binaural audio in that the left, you put headphones on and the left ear will have a sound
frequency
or music at a certain frequency, and the right ear will hear another frequency, another sound at a different alternate frequency.
Have you ever used it?
Yeah, I've tried the tapes over the years, but it's the kind of thing where I've tried it for 10 minutes and gone, this is so boring.
Well, I would say boring because, I mean, I like that kind of stuff, but I have tried HemiSync and it's just, for whatever reason, it just can't.
How long have you done it for?
Maybe an hour?
Okay, see, that's the problem. You got to go through the whole course and treat it like a discipline.
Right.
It's like going, you know, I did an hour's worth of karate. How come I'm not a black belt?
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of thing. You get out of it what you put into it. To give you an example, this is just a little snippet of the very first CD that came out.
You start to hear a wavering, a vibrato in the tone. When you hear this, your brain is beginning to act in unison. The two halves of your brain, the hemispheres, are starting to act and perform electrically as one unit. This is what is described as hemispheric synchronization, or HemiSync as we call it. This greater natural brain-mind power is what you will learn to use. So relax for a moment and explore this new feeling of HemiSync.
That's why I stopped listening to it, because it's like
Yeah.
hours. But it's an interesting system because people seem to get a lot out of it, and the people that do it and put this discipline into it do come out with these wild experiences, and it opens up this extra perception to them in some cases that leads them into supposedly these other dimensions.
What I like about the stories I've heard about HemiSync over the years and the Monroe method is so many people that do exactly what you described, being like, oh, this is so boring, and they get up to like leave and go get a glass of water or something, and they turn around and their body's still on the bed.
Yeah,
They're the cool reports, and there's a lot, yeah.
This is along the lines of one of those adventures. So a little bit of background on Monroe. He was born in 1913, I think, but it wasn't until the 1950s that he started experiencing the OBEs. And they just came along randomly. He would just find himself outside of his body. Now, it's interesting, the timing, because being born in 1913 and he had his experiences in late, I think it was 1958, he would have been 42 when this huge spontaneous change in his life started to occur, this real spiritual change.
Even though it was spontaneous, did something spur that spontaneity?
I'd have to go back to his material. It's been years since I read it, but the
Like he'd have a trauma or a loss or something like that?
not that I'm aware of, but the the timing is really intriguing when you put it into the perspective of cycles of time.
Why is that?
And I spoke on previous shows about Rudolf Steiner's views on cycles of evolution for the human being. And it occurs in 7-year cycles.
That's right, yeah.
And so you come to full consciousness of being a human at the age of 7, and at the age of 14 there's another
42.
development, and then at 21. And at 42, it's said in Steiner's philosophy that there will be some major shift in occurrence, either physically or spiritually or mentally, that will act as a kind of a wake-up call for the individual. For a lot of people in their early 40s, it's some kind of health issue. You have some serious issue, and it causes you to reassess. You reassess your whole life and what's really meaningful to you. And Steiner noticed that this was on a cycle that would occur all the time. So I looked at, did the math on Monroe's age, and this is when all this happened, when he turns 42, and it totally changes his life. So he looked for explanations. He went to doctors, psychiatrists, and obviously he didn't get an acceptable explanation. He ended up developing techniques for inducing and controlling the experiences himself. And this is where the books came from. So the first was in 1971, Journeys Out of the Body. Far Journeys was in 1985, and Ultimate Journey in 1994. He founded the Monroe Institute in Virginia in the early 1970s. And I think I've got a couple of pics of the place. Well, here's Monroe, for starters. And there's a couple of images of the facility. It's beautiful. It's still there. Yes, it's really amazing looking location. Giant crystal. You gotta have a giant crystal.
Of course, it's obligatory.
If you're setting up some kind of institute, you gotta have a giant crystal in your backyard. And he developed this system called, it's just called TMI, the Monroe Institute. It explores human consciousness and offers programs to help individuals experience and develop expanded states of awareness. And of course, HemiSync came out of that, which is the patented technology. And I'll link to some of those early CDs and programs. You can still buy those today, obviously.
I think there's actually a full website dedicated to HemiSync.
Yeah, they got a big store where they sell all that stuff. He passed away in March of 1995. So Oliver, our author, had ponied up thousands for this Monroe Institute course. And he's immediately having second thoughts when he arrives, because this place, he's from Germany, he's just come to America, this place is in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, and he's like, I've got to spend 6 days with these total strangers in this weird lodge in the middle of nowhere. What am I doing with my life? Anyway, he goes in and he meets the staff, and they welcome him into the lobby, and Tammy is the woman that meets him, but he's basically assigned a room, which is number 19, and his roommate is Phil. And he explains how Tammy leads him through these corridors. And I'm just going to I might just play a little slideshow I've got here, which I downloaded from, there's no audio with this, but it will show you the pictures. If you're watching the video, it'll show you the images of what the lodge looks like. He's taken into this small room next to 2 desks and 2 clothes rails are these wooden cubicle enclosures.
Very 70s, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Wood-lined walls and plush furniture.
These are old photos. I'm not sure what it looks like today. But he starts talking about this CHEC unit that he's shown.
What is that?
Well, he's got no idea. This woman, Tammy, says, this is your CHEC unit. CHEC stands for Controlled Holistic Environmental Chamber, and this is where you're going to do your exercises. And he's like, where are the bedrooms? And she says, this is your bedroom. And I see if we've got an image of it here. That's like the orgy room that you go to afterwards. Look at this. These are these little wooden cubicles that you spend the majority of your time in. They're built, there's 2 of them per room.
Oh, and there's that giant mirror there. I was only just reading actually recently about how, I don't know if it was Monroe, but there were out-of-body experiences where people described going through the mirror.
Oh, I don't think there's a mirror.
It's not
there.
that one? What's that?
On the back?
Yeah.
I think that's just the curtain that goes over the entry to the cubicle. But yeah, you've got another roommate in there who's in his own cubicle. And you're just inside, and he looks at it, he's like, I'm gonna die, I can't do this, too claustrophobic, I can't deal with this.
Not that small. I mean, God, if you've ever been to a capsule hotel, that's nothing.
Who's been to a capsule hotel?
Plenty of people have.
I've never been to a capsule hotel. And there's speakers on either side of your ears, but you do get a set of headphones. So what they're doing is they're piping in the hemisync stuff through the headphones, and then I think you get instructions coming through the speakers. So yeah, he's wondering how on earth he's going to deal with this through all this.
What is that?
It's just random. Oh, spoon mending. There's a photo of spoon mending. I'll just run that slideshow while I go through some of this. But he meets the instructors. He meets John and Karen, the other two instructors, and they say, "This week we want you to forget about linear time. We will wake you early in the morning and ring the big bells in the den, and this will indicate the start of each new program activity." So I'll just skip ahead to his first experience. He starts talking about this guided relaxation, and he describes listening to the hemisync sounds and his heart just getting faster and faster. He said, "Bob slowly counts from 1 to 10 and I feel a slight pressure in my skull. My right hand begins to tingle as if I've fallen asleep. And for a moment," he says, "I feel as if I'm sinking. And before I can delve deeper into this sensation, Monroe's voice continues through my earphones, sounding muffled. Focus 10, he says. You are now in focus 10, the state where your body is deeply relaxed and your mind is fully awake." And he starts describing images flashing through his mind, but they're coming through so fast, like fractions of a second, he can't focus on anything. Suddenly, he says, "My body feels as heavy as lead. I'm momentarily frightened. Thoughts race uncontrollably through my mind. This is what it must feels like. This is what it must feel like to be paralyzed." And so something's happening.
It is affecting you.
Immediately something is occurring. And this is where he explains how the technology theoretically works. So the brain responds to rhythmic sounds by generating waveform patterns, brainwave patterns. He says consistent drumming, for example, can induce relaxation in some listeners. Slow rhythmic music has a similar effect. So the basic concept is, well, he says, consider you've got two tuning forks, for example, and they're calibrated to slightly distinct pitches. Say you've got one at 400 hertz, you've got another at 405. If you strike them simultaneously, these sounds amalgamate in the air to form a third sound, which is a so-called monaural vibration at 5 hertz, right? That's the difference between the two frequencies. Now, musicians, especially using string instruments, they're familiar with these vibrations because they're constantly tuning their instruments. They hear these all the time. This monaural vibration disappears only when the tuning fork aligns with the relative string. However, when the two different sounds are separately channeled into each ear via headphones, the brain constructs that third sound from the 5 hertz difference, which is known as the phantom sound. This is the binaural beat. The right and left hemispheres of the brain adjust to this new frequency to establish equilibrium. This phenomenon results in hemispheric synchronization, a harmonized state of the brain. So, long story short, it is a really efficient, very straightforward way to essentially modify your brainwaves. And a lot of the adherents to the system claim that it is a way to skip hours of meditation, which might achieve the same result.
Feels like it's cheating though, doesn't it?
Yes, in a way, but I mean, they're not focusing on, one of the things with meditation is it's usually coupled with some kind of spiritual discipline, which this is not. This is just doing something to your brain.
So theoretically, could we change the frequency of the left and right channels of the show, for example, and induce the same effect? Or does it have to be a certain instrument that's used, drumming?
You could do that, but we'd have to record in stereo somehow, so we wouldn't be able to use these mics, because this is just a mono signal.
But I'm wondering if that would have an effect. So like all this kind of the ideas of what's it called, like surreptitious programming, that kind of stuff. Like I wonder if advertising agencies have worked out how to utilize this.
Do some kind of binaural right-wing extremist dog whistle. It's just like subliminally programming the audience. We could do that.
I didn't say that, okay? Like for the comments, I didn't say that.
You were thinking it though. I picked up on the thoughts. Yeah, we could do that. We could try that for a future show. We won't tell anyone. We'll just start doing it. So Monroe developed this specific frequency compositions to support various meditative states. And his key was he designed this kind of map to facilitate the movement through these states. So what Oliver is doing here in this first experience is like focus 1. Getting into that first altered state, just experiencing those changes in the brain. and he went up to focus level 35. I think is the maximum. I'm not sure where they're up to today, whether people have expanded on it. And the baseline consciousness that we're in now is just called C1, and that's where you start. So back to Oliver's experience, he says what he's going through is his brain reacting to that hemisync technology. And as he's lying flat on his back, he's now paralyzed. So it's almost like...
So it does paralyze you.
It's like it's inducing a sleep paralysis experience.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
And he actually starts to panic like you do under sleep paralysis. He said, I focus on breathing. I'm trying to, stay calm, inhaling, exhaling. And he says it works. I start to calm down and relax. But he says, I barely sense my body at all. It feels as if my mind has separated from it. And he's enveloped in this profound stillness. It's quite amazing. And that's when he hears it. He starts to hear this horrible snoring coming through. Just this kind of awful, really loud snoring. He's like, what the hell is that? It becomes so annoying. And he's trying to figure out where it's coming from. It must be the other guy, Phil, that's in his room in the other pod. And he's almost relieved when the voice comes through the speakers, slowly taking them out of that altered state, going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're back in the room.
You have to wonder though, because that looks like it's a huge building. Why would you put people in shared rooms? There must be something about the hemisync or the outer body, because if you're going to affect people through snoring, which people do,
maybe it's just the way they built it and that's just how it is. But then maybe there's something to partnering up with someone as well. You get to share things with someone. So following the instructions, they jot down their observations in this little notebook they get. And he said my experience with Focus 10 aligns with most of the participants because they all meet up afterwards to share their experiences. And only Anne's experience of Focus 10 diverged significantly. And she's this elderly woman, I think she's in her 80s or something. And she just says, oh, body asleep, mind asleep. She says, I must have dozed off. I only woke up when the exercise was over.
That's so easy to happen though, whenever you're doing anything like that.
So he realizes that Sheba must have been the one that was snoring. I'm listening to this old lady snore. I paid $2,500 for this week-long getaway, and I'm just listening to this old lady snore. So the next day, their exercise is activating the Rebal Resonant Energy Balloon.
As in rebalancing?
I should know what it stands for, but something to do with balancing. He says you basically visualize energy erupting from in your head, going outside the top of your head, and then circulating around your body, and then going back up through the soles of your feet.
That was that tree thing that I described to you, the show we did last week, where the psychic was viewing, remember the sad tree?
Yeah.
So she was describing that the energy was coming up at the top and then radiating around and then coming back underneath.
Yeah, that's this energy cycle that they have to visualize in one of these exercises, but he's terrible at it. He says
it's a hard thing to visualize.
You're trying to get this nice synchronous flow going, and he's just got this whirlwind of chaotic energy going everywhere. At least he's just not very good at visualization. And he says, I'm slowly starting to get it. He's slowly starting to get somewhere. He's getting better and better at it. And then finally, he hears this. You're just like, $2,000 for this.
Do they sit there doing this all day? How often do they do it in hour-long sessions, or is it something that's
hours?
Hours, yeah.
You got a break and then hours and hours.
I can imagine, it'd be very frustrating.
And he hears this snoring, and it's time to come out of it again. So he's like, damn it, I just cannot get this. So he's so annoyed that he's heard this snoring because he felt like he was about to perceive something, something was happening. And he's like, this sucks, that stupid woman and her snoring. And he goes over to turn on the switch, the light switch that's in this little unit thing that he's in. And he can't hit the switch. And he's like, what's wrong with the switch? Because he kind of dozed when he come out of it. And he looks up, opens his eyes, and his arms going through the wood. His arms going through the wall of this CHEC unit. And he's thinking, what the hell's going on? What on earth just happened? So he snaps out of it, drags himself out of bed, and he ends up going to this experience sharing afterwards, and the instructor say, oh, you had what's called a partial out-of-body experience.
So he kind of didn't realise he was out of body, which is very typical in these experiences.
He obviously didn't realise, but he wasn't fully out. It's like just his arm was out.
Oh.
Like obviously his eyes, his head, he was pretty much back to normal, but his arm had lagged somehow, which I found kind of funny.
Was the snoring him?
Well, that's an interesting idea that the snoring's him. It may be him, or it might just be this annoying old lady. We'll answer that question in a moment. When he gets into the next task, the whole goal is to construct an energy tool. And he says this is a universal aid that allows us to purposefully direct energy in the non-physical realm.
It's the Minecraft of out-of-body experiences.
It really is. Like, yeah,
It's like a crafting table.
you got to craft a lightsaber in another dimension. That's really what it is. And the concept of this is completely foreign to him. And he's like, what is this light bar nonsense? I don't get it. And he strives to maintain an open mind and closes his eyes, goes through the whole process, going through the focus levels. And when Robert Monroe's voice kicks in, he's trying to activate this energy field around him. This is basically what you're listening to. I've got another clip here. This is the energy bar creation program.
Okay.
Now you're going to construct your first energy tool. Visualize a spot of light. A small white spot of light. A glowing, sparkling spot of light. Now take this spot of light and stretch it out. Stretch it out. Stretch it out until it becomes a white line. Stretch it out until it becomes white line. Make this spot of light into a short white line.
So he's sitting there trying to do this, and it seems like everyone else in the course is like, they're somehow managing to do it. But he just can't get it. He can't visualize it properly.
Is he one of these people that can't visualize anything?
I don't know if it's his German analytical mind going, this is nonsense, I don't understand this. And he just cannot do it. And he kind of asks himself again, how would it actually feel to hold a glowing rod in his hand?
Overthinking it.
He really is.
That's the problem.
His
That's the
analytical
poison
mind
stuff.
is really kicking in. And as soon as he poses this question, though, what would it feel like? Something happens. The scene opens up before him, and vivid as real life, realer than real, this unexpected angelic female floats into his vision. What? She's got long dark hair, frames this exotic face, but she's not dressed in a white flowing robe or anything. She's wearing like little brown shorts and a yellow t-shirt. And she's holding this glowing light rod.
You drop this.
And she goes up to him, she's like, oh, here, Oliver, you can take my energy bar, I don't really need it anymore. And he's like, oh, he's so bewildered, he takes it, and then he starts hearing a he comes out of it again. He's like, comes out of the whole experience.
There's kind of, nonchalant, I don't need it anymore. Is it another participant?
Well, he gets out of the experience, and he's never experienced anything like this before. It is so real. It is beyond a dream. It's not some kind of imagination. He's scribbling in his notebook. That was incredible. It was like a real person. Some angel came to me. She gave me her light bar. I could see it. I could feel it. It was 100% real. And he gets to the sharing session afterwards, and other people are having difficulty, creating this light bar. He's not the only one struggling with it. And he's about to express his disappointment that he failed the exercise when a participant at the back of the room speaks up. And she says, well, I found it really easy to create the energy tool. She says, it took a few seconds. But she said, then I thought I may as well check on the others. And at first I sensed Anne, and she was just standing there doing nothing. And when I tried to get her attention, she didn't react. And Anne's that old lady that keeps on falling asleep. And Anne, in this session, she just starts laughing. She's like, oh, yes, that's right. I slept through the whole thing, silly me. Sorry, everybody. And she says, that's not all, though. I saw Oliver, and he seemed distraught. He seemed frustrated.
But did he recognize her? Like, if he doesn't recognize her?
No, well, she keeps going and says, look, he found it hard to create an energy rod, so I simply gave him mine. And she looks over at him, like the whole room falls silent. She looks over at him and she says, you're Oliver, aren't you? And she introduces herself. She says, I'm Maya.
Welcome to 32 Red Online Casino! That's incredible! Visit 32...
Tombola's daily free game, only at Tombola.
Low t-shirt. She's got these brown little shorts on. She's got dark hair. Everything matches. She doesn't look like an angel, like she looks normal, obviously. But it was her. And he says, what you've just described is exactly what happened. This is what I wrote in my notebook. I don't know how you did it, but I saw it. I experienced it. So now some of his doubts are starting to leave. It's a bit of validation. And at dinner, he asks the instructors, he's like, how is this possible? You know, he's never heard anything like this. And he's trying to find some kind of sensible explanation. But the instructor, John, says that, look, when Robert was alive, he would always stress, don't believe anything I tell you, search for yourself and gather your own experiences. He said he gave us a map, but we must undertake the journey ourselves. And what they were trying to push him to do was to, because he had read so many books on out-of-body experiences, he had a very structured, rigid way of how they should happen. You know, what you should do and what the experience will be like. And they had to keep drilling this into him that he needed to forget all of that stuff. He needed to stop thinking about how it was supposed to be and just try and experience it with an open mind. And later he goes to this woman, Maya, and he's like, how did you even find me? And her answer is kind of new age kooky because she says, oh, I just asked my spirit guides to direct me to who needed help, and that's how I came across you. He's like, what are spirit guides? What is this? And she says, oh, I don't really know. All I can say is it's always been there when I need their help. And he's like, okay, yes, this woman is crazy. He has no idea what she's talking about. But she suggests to him a new approach. She says, well, you know, you're having trouble with these exercises. Why don't you ask for help from your spirit guides? Why don't you try and perceive them and maybe they can help you? And he's like, that sounds crazy. How do I even do that? And she says, well, he asks her, how do you do it? She's like, oh, I can see very clear images. One of them's an old medieval monk, and another one appears as a man with a wolf's head. Wait, a wolf man is a spirit guide for you?
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
A werewolf is your spirit guide.
Well, but in saying that though, you know, there's the idea that this is some type of spiritual archetype, and that's why people see Wolfman, and it's always been with us, so maybe.
Still, do you want spiritual advice from a wolfman?
No.
I don't know.
I personally probably wouldn't. And now that I've said that, I'll probably attack the wolf.
Yeah, if I were an archetype, it's the, you know, the long-haired, Jesuit-looking guy in the robes with a beard.
Or, you know, like something with long, like, dark hair and, like, a big robe.
Or like a Taoist with a whip or something, and a long moustache.
Yeah, that works, yeah.
I'd even settle for a Native American. I don't want some wolfman giving me spiritual directions. She's fine with it, apparently. So, he thinks, okay, I may as well try this. I got nothing to lose. And the next...
Bigfoot appear.
Meanwhile, Karen and John, the instructors, they introduce them to the next level of consciousness, Focus 12. Monroe described this level as a state of expanded awareness. This time, the process goes off without a hitch. He said, I immediately perceive the rebound, the energy circulating. He said, the more I relax, the more I feel the vibration. I am the vibration, he says. Something's really kicking in. And the awareness of his body disappears. He says, for the first time, I experience what Monroe describes in this affirmation you do at the start of every session, where you've got to say, I am more than my physical body. This is the first time he's actually feeling that for real. And then as he feels like something momentous is about to happen, he's feeling this hemisync power. And all of a sudden, here we go. The snoring kicks in again. And he's just had enough. He's like, I'm so sick of this snoring. He decides to bring it up with the trainers. He's like, as soon as I'm out of this session, I'm just going to ask to be moved to a different room. And he's listening intently. He's like, it's got to be coming from the next room. And he totally picked it like a dirty nose. Like, he rolls over and to try and hear it better, and he hears this boop, boop, boop. And And that's when he realizes it's him.
It's him.
He's the one that's been snoring this whole time.
So this is strange though. So it's suggesting that he's asleep, but I thought with this kind of stuff that you're in an altered state.
Well, this is the altered state though, because his body is asleep, but his mind is fully lucid. And he was wide awake the whole time, even though his body's asleep. His body is not. So he refocuses. And he starts describing, instead of it feeling like he's breathing, it feels like something's breathing him. Something's pumping his lungs. He floats beyond the limits of his physical body, he says, and it feels like someone's trying to cram a large gob of cotton candy into a tiny can, he says. That's how it feels. Like his body...
people describe something similar to that.
His body's getting heavier and heavier. He said, I can feel my physical body, but I can't move it. He says, once my breath returns, my awareness expands. And he's jolted out of it by the countdown from one room on the speakers saying it's time to come out of it. And his roommate, Phil, comes in. Phil pulls back the curtains like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? He says, that was intense. That was amazing. He's like, why? I just started feeling this breathing sensation and, I felt heavy and weird. And Phil's like, I was flying above the center. I saw the crystal. I was going above the lake. I saw everything. It was incredible. And he's like, oh, I just felt this weird sensation. And again, he's like lagging behind the group. This guy's having all these amazing sensations.
I can't believe I spent $2,000 on this.
Yeah, basically, that's his regret. And this guy Phil is like, I saw a shoe on the roof. I swear I saw a shoe on the roof. And this must be some kind of old out-of-body cliche by now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like that near-death experience where the woman was in hospital and she went up above the hospital, she saw an old shoe up there, and when she was back in her body, she went to check. And
why is there so many old shoes on roofs? Don't you just throw your shoes in the bin when you're done with them? Who's throwing them on roofs? So this guy Phil drags him to the top of the building, and they end up having a look, and they find the shoe. And he says when he finally gets to ask his spirit guides for contact in another session, he says all that happens is his leg twitches. Right? He asks all these questions like, if you're there, give me a sign.
Oh, like a kinesiology kind of effect. Like
at first he thinks nothing's happening, then he asks a yes or no question, and his left leg twitches. And then he asks another question, and the answer's obviously the opposite, and his right leg twitches. He comes out of it, and he speaks to the instructors, and he speaks to Mayor or something, and they say maybe that's how they communicate with you. And
well, it sounds like he's not fully connecting yet either, so it's like whatever way he can get through.
He's skeptical of this, but he continues. He doesn't try and come to any conclusions. He reaches focus 15 in a follow-up session where someone screams his name, but he doesn't see anything. Someone just is like, Oliver! And then he comes out of it. During the concluding meditation in focus 15, there's this session where you're instructed by the audio to focus on a place on Earth that makes you feel good, visualize yourself there, and he picks the island of Corsica, and he actually lived there for 2 years as a young man. He's got great memories from there, and he found himself standing on the beach, sand under his toes, the visualization's very strong, and following the meditation instructions, he imagines himself growing taller and taller and expanding until he can see the curvature of the Earth, and then taller and taller until he can see the map of the Earth. And eventually
this is the level stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, eventually the Earth shrinks beneath him until it's like the size of a ball. He's floating through the universe, the planet's at eye level, and when he reaches out to grab Earth, intuitively reaches out to grab it, the trainer in this vision, in this visualization, John, suddenly appears and grabs planet Earth and says, "Here, Oliver, catch," and throws it. Planet Earth hits him in the head, and he immediately comes out of the experience, and he's in his hemiseat bed. Anyway, a few minutes later, everyone gathers to share their experiences. And Sleepy Anne has something incredible to share.
She could hit the face with a ball. No, bouncing off someone else's face.
She actually meets her deceased son, and that's the whole reason why she went to this. She said, he showed me his new home. I've waited 20 years for this moment. Knowing that Samuel is doing well means so much to me. My son took his own life. No one knows why. He didn't even live a suicide note. And this was a really moving story where she shared this interaction with her son where he explained everything. She got some closure, and everyone's kind of in tears, and you know they're wondering if there's anything else to share. And almost to liven up the moment, the instructor John grabs this felt ball and throws at Oliver and says, "Oliver, catch!" And he's too slow because he's still crying after hearing this old woman's story, and the ball hits him in the head. And he goes down to pick it up, and it's a map of the Earth on this felt ball.
So was he experiencing a precognition in that out-of-body state, or was it that somehow was the guy demonstrating that he'd been there and had done that?
Well, he asks the instructor this, and the instructor's like, "Well, I don't really know. It's up to you to interpret the experience."
Right.
But yeah, it does
Probably
seem
more
like some
likely
kind of precognitive event. Eventually, they go into the next session, and they're about to visit Focus 21, it's called. And Monroe describes this stage as the bridge between the physical and the non-physical, a bridge between these energy systems, a threshold between physical reality and the levels outside time and space. And Oliver admits this doesn't make much sense to him at all, but it becomes even more abstract as Karen, the other instructor, starts to explain that there's a cafe near this bridge that connects the two worlds. And he's like, "What are you talking about? A cafe?" And they say, yeah, it's a construct. It's been created by the thousands of people that have done this gateway program. They usually meet up at this place, and over time, it's just in an almost tulpic way formed into a kind of French cafe in another dimension.
It's strange when you think about it, because you've got thousands of people that are using intense mental focus and energy, which is how we believe that we understand that these places are created. But why is it that they somehow created a Parisian or like a French style cafe? Like, why is that?
Well, if I asked you to think of a cafe, what would you think of? Would it be a Parisian style street cafe?
Yeah, you know what? It probably would.
But yeah, it's like, that's the.
Why do we go there?
Why do you go to a cafe?
Yeah, when you say, describe a cafe, why is it that it seems that people go to a Parisian style cafe?
Because the Parisians mastered the cafe.
Yeah, okay,
it's like the pinnacle of cafe achievement. No one's conquered it.
I can even hear the accordion music right now as I'm imagining it.
Like it goes, Starbucks is down here, Parisian street cafe.
Yeah.
Right up here. Yeah, right.
You can tell how spiritually aware you are depending on where you land up. If you go to Starbucks,
according to John, this instructor, he said, among other things, the cafe serves as a launch point for shared excursions into non-physical realities. It's a kind of base camp where you can agree to meet. And after the exercise, you can discuss your observations. So he's like, all right, how the hell do I find this place? As if reading his mind, Karen jumps in and says, when you want to explore a certain place in a non-physical realm, you have to program your inner GPS accordingly, and you do this by setting a clear intention. So she claims all you have to do is go into the experience saying, I'm meet at the cafe. I'll meet at the cafe. I'm intending to meet at the cafe. So he sets his internal navigator to the cafe, and he allows the sound frequencies to come in, and Monroe's voice guides them through this color spectrum. He calls them the Miranon colors, and Miranon was some entity, I can't remember this from his books, but some entity he encountered.
I was wondering at this level, right, if this is a threshold, is this where people most commonly encounter entities of some kind?
Well, we'll get into that in a moment. Yeah, there is entities that pop up. And he has a hard time visualizing all of this, and it's only until he reaches Focus 18, he says, that he gets a distinct impression of one of the colors, which is rose, and it starts to morph into this dense fog. And out of this fog, he hears a voice, and the voice whispers very clearly to him, "We will meet again here." Now, before he can respond, he hears the 10, 9, 8, the countdown from Monroe over the speakers, and he kind of drifts through this purple cloud until, instead of seeing colors, he kind of merges into this white light, and for a moment, just before the end of the countdown, it feels miraculous, and he feels like he could stay there forever. It's almost like a near-death experience. And very reluctantly, he comes out of the experience and is back in his normal surroundings. But what was that voice? "We will meet here again." Who was that? Who was whispering to him? And he ended up asking his roommate, "Was that you calling? Did you say something?" He's like, "No, I didn't say anything." Anyway, that's kind of the end of the week. It's getting towards the end. And he's told, before we deal with mundane issues like travel arrangements, he said the trainers had a surprise for us. And he said this is a small preview of what awaits you beyond Focus 21. Focus 27, the park. And Focus 27 is this really intriguing place because Monroe, especially in his latter books, wrote about this location that he kept on arriving at. And when he first encountered it, he wasn't that interested because it seemed to be a place where people would go immediately after death. And he saw it as like people lining up, checking into a convention center, and there was a park, and there was like a healing center and a library, and beautiful scenery, like it's all
Sounds like a university campus or something.
Yeah, well, he kept on coming across it, but he just wasn't interested because, you know, he wants to explore. He didn't have any illnesses or any worries about death. Then I think his wife got cancer and she passed away, and he returned to it. And I think his final book is really focused on this area, Focus 27, the park.
So does he find his wife?
Yeah, he finds his wife. And what's intriguing about Monroe's work is that other people who have done this program have also found the park. And it's the way you think of it is like a level of consciousness or a level of existence, a different dimension where people seem to check into the afterlife. It's like this weird kind of acclimation zone. And part of the last session was you go into this. Well, he describes trying to essentially reach the park. This was the idea, is that perhaps you get a glimpse of the park. And he says the moment Monroe's voice reaches my ears through the headphones, he has that physical heaviness come over him. But he said this time he was just overcome by mental fatigue and he simply fell asleep. And when he came to, he finds himself in this French street cafe. And he's sitting at this round outdoor table. There's a sugar bowl in front of him. There's a glass of water in front of him. And he's totally confused. He scans the surroundings. Nothing's familiar. And he's like, I've been to France before. I've been to Paris before. But I don't recognize this place. And he's embarrassed because, you know, like, you should always know where you are and how you got there and what you're doing. But he knows none of this.
But this all feels very real to him.
Well, the knowledge of him being at the Monroe Institute and doing this has totally vanished. Like, he's totally confused. He's got no recollection. It's like he's just been planted in this new location. Around him are people engrossed in conversation. No one seems to notice him. He tries to listen to the conversation and he can kind of make it out, but he can't quite understand the language. It's some weird language he can't understand. It's not French. He says, only now do I realize that there are no people or vehicles on the street or the sidewalk in front of me. He's like, where the hell am I? How did I get here? What is going on? And he dare not leave his seat because he thinks, where would I go? I don't even know where I am. What would I do? And he starts to wonder if he's ordered something, like if something's coming from the waiter. Panic starts to set in when this young man sits down. Some guy he doesn't recognize sits down at the same table. And this guy says, oh, my apologies for keeping you waiting. There's a lot happening today. And Oliver's just staring at him going, okay, what is going on? Look, I'd love to show you the park now. They're expecting you, but it's just a super busy day.
I'd be like, oh my God, I'm dead.
And as soon as he says the park, it's like a lightning strike, right? And suddenly he's like, Monroe Institute, CHEC unit, Focus 27, the park. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. Holy crap. I'm here. And this guy gets up from his chair and he suddenly hears another voice. The voice says, express your gratitude to those who supported you on your journey to the park and say goodbye for now. It's time to return to waking consciousness. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he's back. It's the end of the meditation. It's the end of the tape.
Way to encourage people to come back to the next program.
And so he's like, I was there. I was at the park and you brought me out of it. Oh.
So who was the guy? Was he someone that he knew, or was it just a random guide?
He's got no idea. He's like, every time it gets interesting, Monroe brings me back to physical reality. So that's the end of his week, and it's the end of the Gateway program at the Monroe Institute. Truly life-changing for him. But before he leaves, the instructor warns him. He says, make sure you wait 30 days before making any life-changing decisions. This instructor, John, says, look, some participants feel a strong urge to radically overhaul their entire lives after this program, but trust me, it's not advisable. Allow the new experiences to sink in first. He's like, I'm not going to do that. Silly, I go back to my job. He says within 30 days, he had quit his job on German television.
You can't go back.
He had bought a ticket to Byron Bay, Australia, the hippie capital of our country.
Good luck to him.
And had signed up for a yoga instructor's course. It's like, what is going on?
How long ago was this?
This is like the 2000s.
Oh, well, if he's still there now, he's probably made a great deal of money in the property market.
Well, no, he didn't stay there because he says it was hardcore. Like, he got to Byron Bay, he's like, everything's going to be la-di-da. I'm going to talk about
it's become so pretentious. It's just like...
Well, he said this yoga instructor's course was hardcore. They were not interested in any of his nonsense New Age OBE stories or any New Age concepts. They were just like, mate, we've got to learn these bloody yoga prasana shit. We've got to get on top of this.
Sure, it was like that.
Yeah, it was like hardcore Ashtanga yoga, which is the most difficult system of poses, and they were all like young men competing against each other. And he says it was full on, like it was hard, it was like Shaolin monk training, and he was just sore all over all the time. It was so bad, he didn't even get to practice any OBEs. He just had to try and get through this course. And it was full on that it was so full on, but that by the time he got to the end of the course, he got an invite to come back to the Monroe Institute for another week. He just jumps at the chance. He's like, I've got to get out of this hardcore yoga stuff. So, so he goes back and he does this guidelines program. And he said, during that week, I encountered a few stumbling blocks, but it no longer discouraged me. But he said one of the challenges I had to face daily came in the form of click-outs during the hemisync experiences. And I never realized this, perhaps I'd forgotten this from Monroe's work, but the click-out describes what I've mentioned a couple of times on recent shows about what happened to me when I was a teenager. When I was at my cousin's house, I remember reading this comic book late at night. And then,
this is the instantaneous daybreak.
Yeah, then closing the comic book, closing my eyes, and then opening them, and it's daytime.
Yeah.
And having no concept of any passage of time, of any sleep having have happened, or, you know, the normal feeling you have when you know that time's passed.
Yeah, or the adjustment of light. Like, you instantly go from nighttime to daytime.
It was so strange, and I never forget that moment. And the Monroe Institute, Robert Monroe, came up with a term for this called click-outs, because it would happen pretty regularly to people that would have these out-of-body experiences using hemisync.
What is it exactly?
Well, it's this jargon they came up with for this gap in awareness where any sense of time and memory is lost, while those who sleep are generally aware that they've slept, experiencing a relative sense of time and lingering drowsiness upon waking. Click-outs lack these characteristics. Now, he doesn't go into any deep explanation of what they are. I think they just don't know. But he said some trainers have reached the conclusion that a click-out can also be caused by a substantial information download the brain cannot process in real time.
So you had an information download when you were 17?
I swear I want to get a hypnotic regression and go back to that night.
We should.
Just like,
we should, to find out what was going on.
Some
grey holding a gun pointed at your head up there, just firing a laser into your head.
Yeah, something happened. Anyway, he goes into this session and he's got a couple of journal entries. This is from January of 2002, where he's described his ears filling up with this strange muffling sound, and he considers taking off the headphones, but then he has a click out. He says suddenly there's a click out, and he comes to and he's in a desert, and he feels like it's in the United States, like it's somewhere he's been on a bus tour in Arizona or something. And when he looks around, he doesn't see anyone else at all. And he carefully raises his right leg and just starts floating up into the air. And he describes thinking about this bus tour and immediately flying through the air and ending up at like a bus station. Perhaps because he just thought of bus tour, like directed him somewhere nearby. And totally disoriented, he lands on the ground and he gets run over by a truck. A truck just
goes through him.
Flattens him, like completely flattens him.
Well, like a cartoon pancake.
Well,
reporting of the conflict, not the terrorist line, general reporting of the conflict.
From what I can tell on the BBC flicking, it was very much, again, not on the side of balance. it was felt a lot more sympathetic to the people of Gaza than to what happened on the Israeli side.
Tom, thank you for that. Let's feature some emails on this subject. Steve in Colchester, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. Samuel Johnson, very appropriate for one of your phone-ins and the type of bigoted people who call you agreeing with you in this case. Steve, so much for a conversation, eh? Dan, as a British Jew, it makes me very angry when I hear other British Jews come on the radio using the royal we to talk about us as if we're all one single entity. We are not. I don't think the BBC has an anti-Semitic bias or is morally corrupt. It has to tread a number of difficult lines all the time. And on balance, I think it does a good job. I wish you and your fellow presenters would challenge people, like Caller more often, how they claim to represent the whole of British Jewry. People like him speak only for themselves. Okay, do keep them coming on that. Oh, one last one. Oh, you haven't signed it, so I won't read this one. But Mike in Crawley has. The BBC proud to be patriotic. Yesterday in their news briefing at 5:30, they referred to the Battle of Balaclava and the charge of the Light Brigade. When the BBC announcer told us how many light infantrymen were killed in the charge, a schoolboy howler, given the Light Brigade was light cavalry and consisted of cavalrymen or troopers. The BBC is stuffed with angst, suffering liberals, and is entirely the architect of its own criticism. Let's go to Wales. Robin's in Bangor. Robin, how patriotic is it, and should it be? Good morning.
Yes, I think that the reporting of the BBC is more impartial than perhaps featuring media. I think the reporting of the atrocities carried out by both sides, plus the reporting of the demonstrations in Britain, strikes in a chord with the British people. And people could construe that as a form of our history and our values, because we equally were being overrun in 1939-45 in our history. I think this strikes in a chord with British people and obviously the Palestinian struggle in terms of what is happening. So I think that in a way you could construe it other ways, like conservative, partial, patriotic maybe, but it is an accord between what is happening with Palestinians being overrun and what happened in Europe many years ago.
Well, yes, but of course there wasn't the terror group that had the atrocities of October the 7th in your comparison there, was there?
Yeah, and equally, this issue of terrorists calling terrorists out, this is a terrorist state operating around the world, and Tel Aviv is one of them. And that's an opinion of me obviously I can divorce myself from the politicians and have this view. But it is state terror what is happening. And I'm sure, and I know, well, obviously in reading things, that many Jews accord with the problems.
Okay. How should Israel have responded?
Israel, highly technical intelligence and resources, skills and military, they can stop the soldiers who will be killed in this war with the security that they're putting out. And really, with regards to hostages, they obviously, it's like you've got to sit down and talk with your enemy. And the problem we got with Israel is a leadership there which allowed evil people into their country and to cause the carnage they did. But they can secure their borders, and I think the invasion would just make matters worse.
All right, Robin, thank you. We talked also about hospital waiting lists, haven't we? And the organisation's found around 11 million people waiting for follow-up appointments. And in Somerset, through my doctor, I had to make my own appointment with the physiotherapy department at my local hospital. I had a code number to give them. When I eventually got through, they put me on a waiting list to make an appointment. I got an appointment 2 months later. Graham in Bushy picks up on a call we took for female doctors. If they start a family after year 3, they still have 4 years to complete their training. Junior doctors usually take 7 years of speciality training as a junior doctor. I know I've paraphrased that. Thank you for that. And lastly, Jason in Surrey. I was referred to Moorfields NHS Hospital in August. I rang last week and told him on the waiting list, so I'll have to wait 20 weeks to get on that list. That's why the figures are wrong. They are hiding patients. Let's finish with a word on mum guilt. Christina's in Wokingham. Do you recognise it, Christina? And if so, does it affect you? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Nick. Great show. Really love listening to your show. Mum guilt did affect me. I had to go back to work when my daughter was 8 months old. And to be honest, I did feel really guilty because she was so young, but I also wasn't faced with a choice. I had to go back to work because I needed to be on full-time income. Also, I think, like all things, you have to have the right perspective. So I think my guilt as a mum would have been worse if I, didn't build up the career that I have and wasn't able to give her the lifestyle that she deserved.
But did that make you a better person when you came home? As Lucy said, you become perhaps a more rounded person because you have your career to go to.
Yeah, I think it does make you a more rounded person. But in my case, like when my daughter was 18 months, I became a single mum.